afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Diane. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right. Having lots of fun in scheduling land.
Sounds the same.
All right, we have a few other folks joining. Good afternoon, Scott, Shannon, Kelly, Willie.
Good afternoon.
How are you, Jordan?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing good.
Okay, and we will wait just a few more minutes to see if we have any other folks hopping on, and then we can get into it. I know we have folks here that might be at varying stages of engagement with Scheduling Pro, whether you're on the legacy schedule engine product, interested in Scheduling Pro, or in the process of setting it up or working with it after it's gone live. So would love to kind of just go through with everyone here and answer any questions that you might have about the product.
I don't have anything just super specific. I'll be honest, most of my interest is based around the capacity settings in there. And specifically how they interact with ServiceTitan. I know a couple of them are the legacy capacity, and then obviously there's the custom capacity, but in general, that's something that we're really trying to get, basically through with a fine-tooth comb of all the different capacity options and which ones are best. And then other than that, just kind of maybe what it holds in the future, maybe some branding stuff in there. I know now it just kind of says the name of the tenant. I wonder if we're going to have an option of adding logos, et cetera, in there. But like I say, primarily capacity is what I'm really looking for.
All right. Thank you for that, Willie. We can definitely talk about capacity and some of the strategies that you can employ and how each of them work. So
Good deal.
With that, I'm going to share my screen. Give me just a moment here. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Looking for some nods. Well, I guess nod from Diane specifically.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so if you've set up Scheduling Pro at this point or have gone through any part of the onboarding, you will have seen this screen. This is the capacity screen, which lets you select a number of different options for capacity. So in general, there are 3 different capacity modes, I'll call them. The first is adjustable capacity planning. So one important distinction here is this is the capacity planning that you would see in your ServiceTitan account if you are working with adjustable capacity planning, not the legacy open capacity. So this is if you're in your ServiceTitan account and you go into scheduling and you go into the capacity planning tab, that's what we're integrating with here. I would say this is the easiest to typically manage within Scheduling Pro because we're just directly pulling the capacity planning settings into your scheduler.
Yeah.
So the way that we do this is a customer comes in, they say, hey, I need this certain type of service from you. Based on how you have your Scheduling Pro set up, we say, okay, that points to this job type. And then Scheduling Pro is going to go back to your ServiceTitan account and say, what's the right business unit for this job type? If there's only one business unit assigned to it, we get that business unit back. If there are multiple business units assigned to it, we're going to fall back on any sort of business unit rules that you have set up that tell us which business unit we should be looking at for that job type. And we'll fall back on the default business unit if no rules apply. So basically, we're just using that logic to point to the right business unit for the job. And then your ACP gives us back the windows to show and whether or not there's capacity for them. So if you're already using ACP, in most cases, it makes sense to use this option. If you're considering ACP or in the process of setting it up, once that is set up, this does give you kind of the best real-time availability, so to speak, and it's all managed within ServiceTitan. We're just listening for it with Scheduling Pro. So that's ACP. Next, you have business hours. So business hours, we're just directly pulling your business hour starts and ends from your ServiceTitan settings, and we show those as available. There's no capacity restrictions. There's no like, hey, 6 to 8 is going to have 5 slots available, that sort of thing. It's just open for booking. So if your strategy is, I just want to book the job, we'll figure everything else out later, I don't want to turn any customers away, then business hours could be a good option for you. And then we have custom capacity. So custom capacity, there's a lot that you can do with this. And I would say this sits somewhere in the middle. So let's say I don't have ACP set up, so adjustable capacity planning isn't going to be right for me, but I don't want it to be open season on booking. So business hours isn't totally right for me. Custom capacity gives you a little bit of flexibility to dial in some different options and settings for making appointments available. So you'll see here that we have a few things set up for capacity assignment. So in this example, we have a plumbing trade with 2-hour windows, and we have 5 appointment slots for each. This is what I call non-tech mode, so to speak. That means we're not looking at technicians in any sort of way. You're just telling us, here is the number of jobs that I will book through Scheduling Pro for plumbing from 8 to 10, and we just count it, plain and simple.
And there's no hours don't figure in there at all. It's the number of jobs. Is that right?
Number of jobs, correct.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, and then you'll see here that you can choose different trades. You can choose the start and end time, choose the days and the capacity that's available. Time slot name is blank by default, but if you create a time slot name here, like for example, I see some people do something like first available, that is what your customers will see in the scheduler. So if you don't want to show them 8 to 10 and you want to show them something a little more generic, so first available is the most common, but sometimes we see people create like an 8 to 12 and a 12 to 4 each day and label them morning and afternoon. You can use the time slot name to do that. But again, this is counting the number of appointments. There's no hour calculation in there.
Gotcha.
So this is the sort of non-tech mode. And then you have tech mode. So in tech mode, you're not telling us explicitly how many appointments are available in each slot. You're telling us the technicians that can do plumbing, for example. And then what we'll do is we look at the technicians that can do plumbing, in this case, Adam, Bob, and Charles. And we look to see if they have any jobs booked on any of these 3 techs between 8 and 10. For each appointment that's already booked on one of these technicians, we're subtracting an appointment from availability. So we have 3 technicians here, 3 appointments available. Adam has a job booked on him and Bob has a job booked on him. As a result, we have 1 appointment available, so we still show the 8 to 10. The minute that there's another appointment added on any of these guys, that's 3 or more that are already on them, we don't show it as available. So this is kind of approximating what you do in ACP, but not quite. This is, again, not an exact science, but this gets you closer to saying, okay, here are the techs that can do this work. Does it look like they have the space to take this or not? In addition, we can also choose to treat non-job events like blockers or PTO like they're just another job and deduct capacity for those. And if you're also worried about potentially overbooking, you can adjust this slider from 100%, 75%, 50%, down to even 25 to basically set an upper bound on how much you're willing to book up to. So this allows you to get a little bit more of a safeguard against overbooking. So that's what you can do with the technician sensitive mode. It's also possible to set
Quick
capacity
question
by...
on that piece, Jordan. I'm just curious. So does that mean, say, for example, if a job is booked, basically to make sure the capacity is working right, really, if you're using that tech mode, the jobs really truly need to be assigned to technicians pretty much as soon as possible. If it's sitting down in the unassigned, then it's not actually going to be subtracting any of those slots.
That's correct, Willie. So
Okay.
we're looking at potentially counting them no matter what, but if you were to, let's say, employ a practice where the jobs are sitting in your unassigned section until the day that the technician actually goes out, I would recommend not doing tech mode. I would recommend just, setting 5 appointment slots or what have you for plumbing each day and kind of managing it that way.
Gotcha.
Now, one other thing that you can do is set capacity by job type. So you'll see by default, we do it by trade. The reason we do it by trade is that oftentimes what a tech can and can't do is at the trade level, and it's also quicker and more straightforward to set up. But it is possible to do it by job type. Like, let's say everyone does plumbing, but only Charles can do backflow testing. What we can do is set capacity by job type. And let's say we treat backflow testing as inspection. So Adam and Bob and Charles can do those, but the equipment install can only be done by Charles. That way you make sure that you're always looking at the appropriate technician for that given line of work. But that said, I would not recommend setting capacity by job type unless you absolutely need to. And the reason I say that is because if you're, let's say, running multiple trades out of your scheduler and you have a ton of job types that you're managing, the more that you add here, the more possibilities and more permutations and things that you'll have to keep track of to make sure that your capacity is working the way that it does, or the way that you want it to. So it can quickly get pretty complex if you're setting out some specific mapping and capacity on a job type by job type basis. So I would say make this only as specific as you need to, and bear in mind that you can always change this over time. One practice that I usually consult on here and advise is that you should start with a fairly simple setup that meets your needs as best they can, and look at the data. Are you overbooking? Are you underbooking? Does it seem like there are certain slots that get booked more than others that you could potentially open up capacity for? All of this information is available to you, and you can make changes here to adjust and make sure that you're getting customers through. So I would recommend start it at a high level, see what happens, and then adjust accordingly because the controls are in your hands. So I want to talk a little bit about some advanced settings as well, but Willie and the rest of the folks here, were there any other questions or thoughts on the capacity options here?
Just to confirm, I feel like I probably know the answer here, but basically in the way you have it set now, going off the technicians and then by the job types, of course, if you do the job type piece, then that's only affecting specifically the job types that you put in there. And then every other job type is just going to be looking at the technician's availability.
Fantastic question. So if you set up capacity by job type, you need to make sure that all the job types in your scheduler have capacity set up here.
Gotcha.
So it's not going to infer or imply what capacity should be if something is missing from here. Meaning that if you're going to do by job type, the whole thing has to be done that way. Now you can certainly like batch together multiple job types at once to have a single bucket of capacity, but anything missing from here is not going to show as available.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions on the capacity options?
I didn't have a question on the capacity option, but are we going to cover, heard there's a chat bot that's part of this. Is that true, first of all? And will we be covering that or no?
So, Tristan, the chatbot features are separate from the new version of Scheduling Pro. This might be more related to live services, which used to be part of the schedule engine, but now this newer version of Scheduling Pro is kind of a completely separate product for only the self-serve online booking for customers.
Okay,
so,
cool.
No discussions on chatbot today.
If I did want a chatbot, is that still offered by ServiceTitan? It's just a different product, or?
Yeah, so it's effectively a different product. If I could grab your email address, I can make sure that the folks involved with that can reach out to you for some more information.
Sure, I'll send you a direct message. What was the name of that chat thing again through ServiceTitan, just so I had the name?
So this is live services.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, sure thing. Okay, so I did also want to talk about advanced settings because these are available to you regardless of scheduling mode. So whether I'm ACP, business hours, custom capacity, all of these controls are available to me as well. So date range is going to affect how far in advance time slots will be available. So by default, that's 3 months, but you could set it week to week or up to a year in advance if you so choose. In addition, we also have appointment buffers. So appointment buffers do allow you to control how soon a certain service can be booked in advance. Like let's say, for example, in your peak cooling season, you don't necessarily want to have a basic tune-up available for next day booking. You can put a 24 or 48-hour buffer on those tune-ups specifically, and that way there's a little bit of runway when customers are booking that job. This helps you dial in different prioritization. In addition, we also have blocked dates, which let you do just that, block out a date entirely. Now that can be done across the board on all your zones or all your job types, or it can be for specific job types and zones. And recently we rolled out a feature that lets you set up repeating blocked dates. This can be really useful if, let's say, you have ACP set up and you have an 8 to 10 p.m. after hours block set up in ACP, but you don't want customers in Scheduling Pro to be able to book that. You could do a daily recurring block date that blocks out that 8 to 10 slot. So you have these controls regardless of which capacity mode that you select, which lets you do a little bit more personalization and really dial in those settings.
Can that also be used for, let's say, national holidays when we're closed for a day?
100%, Scott. So we recommend that if you don't operate on Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's Day, you can come in here and build out some block dates for it.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. So those are the capacity controls in a nutshell. With that in mind, Willie, did that kind of cover all of the open questions that you had as far as capacity goes? Take the silence as affirmation. All right, so with that said, we can kind of move back here to the general Scheduling Pro setup, and we'll continue going down the line. Diane, how are you doing? What brings you here today? Any general questions or just a fly on the wall?
Right now, fly on the wall.
All right, perfect. If anything comes up, you know who to reach.
Thank you.
You got it. Scott, any specific questions that you had for us today?
No, Diane and I work together here, so this is just a learning process for us, and we're kind of just soaking it all in. And as questions arise, we'll certainly chime in.
All right, perfect. And I think Willie might still be away from the desk. So with that said, Diane and Scott, as far as your current setup, are you currently using any of our scheduling products, or you just trying to feel things out, learn a little bit more?
I think we're signed up. I know we're signed up for it, but I don't think we've pulled the trigger yet. So,
Got it. So kind of it's on and ready to go. It's just a matter of getting things started.
yeah, kind of. I think we put a little bit of a halt on it for now. I don't remember why. I don't think that felt comfortable enough yet. So, I don't know. And for me, I really haven't been in on it from the get-go, so I'm just trying to catch myself up to speed with some of what you're talking about, so I apologize.
Yeah, no worries at all. Folks are coming from all levels of exposure to Scheduling Pro, so I appreciate you and Scott taking the time to pop in to learn a little bit more. On that same token, Scott, was there any additional color that you wanted to add there from what Diane had provided?
No, we're both in the same bucket here, where we're just trying to learn the basics right now and kind of get a feel for how this works, and so we have at least a foundation when we are ready to pull the trigger.
Perfect. So then what I can do to help you folks out, since it seems like we have a bit of a smaller group today, is just kind of go through setup at a very high level and point out some things that you can keep a close eye on, things to look out for, and just some general tips and tricks when the time does come, if that works for you.
Great.
Jordan,
Okay.
I do have a really quick question. Sorry, I kind of got pulled with the side discussion and missed that last little bit there.
Nope, go for it.
And I've got a 1:30 I'm going to have to jump to. Is this something that'll be sent out to us, this recording, by any chance?
I'll have to check with the team that organized. You should be able to get a copy of it. That said, I think when we close up shop here today, there'll also be a survey link that'll go out as well that you can provide some feedback on. And if you do have any general questions here, Willie, as they come up, I would definitely recommend just reaching out to me. So I'm going to provide my email address here in the chat.
Perfect.
That way, if you need anything, just let me know and I'll be sure to help you out.
Good deal. I appreciate you, man. And yeah, thanks for taking the time to run through it. It was very helpful.
Of course, here to help.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So without further ado, Diane and Scott, you get a little bit of a personalized tour of Scheduling Pro setup as a
Love it.
result.
Nice.
Okay. So a couple things to call out here. I'm going to get a ServiceTitan account pulled up just so that you see where that setup is going to take place or where you can find it, because I know that some folks have had some challenges getting in or seeing the Scheduling Pro setup. So have you guys done anything like Reserve with Google or any of those booking integrations?
I don't think we have. I think we've had through our website, it's called Web Scheduler, but they can't pick and choose. They just tell us what they want to accomplish, whether it's an estimate or a service call or whatever comes in on our email, and then we take it from there and book it.
Sure. So yeah, that sounds like our free web scheduler, just very, very simple, kind of high level. So there's going to be a lot that you can do with this new one for sure. So let's take a look here at all the different options. I won't go too into the weeds here, just kind of give you an overview, and feel free to stop me at any point with any sort of clarifying questions.
Okay.
So first and foremost, just going to let you know where you'll find it. So you'll see here that we have the marketing integrations page in ServiceTitan.
Mhm.
This is where you're going to find Scheduling Pro once it's enabled for you. So this will be where you access it from here on out. Though once you have it up and running, the jobs are going to get fed directly to you in ServiceTitan. So depending on how often you're popping in to reconfigure and look at things, you might not need to go in here too much more after you set it up. But just so you know where you can find it, right in settings and marketing integrations. When you get to Scheduling Pro, you're going to see a page that looks a little bit like this. Now, you're not going to have nearly as many schedulers as I have set up on this account, but you'll have this Create Scheduler button that'll let you get started. And in fact, just to show you exactly what it'll look like on your end, we'll click Create Scheduler, and you're going to get this little notification for Scheduling Pro setup.
Okay.
So some things we're going to build for you out of the box, but then there's others that will prompt for you to review. Some things that you might want to consider setting up before you get to Scheduling Pro onboarding. Do you guys currently have zones set up in ServiceTitan?
So I believe we have zones. I believe we have capacity planning set up in the pick the scheduler. So like you go to the date and then you go to, capacity planning, and then you can pick morning or afternoon, and then we decide which time works based on our schedule. So we have that set up. We do have our technicians in there. Chris would know more on how it was set up on the back end. I'm not 100% sure, but I think we have, based on our technicians and what they're able to do, is, I guess, how many jobs we have available or how many calls we can have for each technician. Our technicians cross over. So currently we have HVAC techs that can do plumbing. We have one that can really do plumbing, but we're trying to cross-train him. And then we have one that's just a plumber, and then we have installers. Sometimes we pull our technicians, which are from service, over to install if we need extra help. That's just to keep the ball rolling and the schedule going.
Sure.
So on the back end, I'm kind of like playing chess because of who I have available at what time. And so I kind of override capacity planning a lot because of who's out on vacation, who's sick unexpectedly, things like that. So.
Okay, so it sounds like it's very conditional for you. Like it's kind of there's an art and a science, like day by day, you're getting a lot of changes and making some judgment calls.
Right.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about your capacity here as we go through it. With that said, you might want to consider going with, so I guess it depends on if you're using adjustable capacity planning, then of course, start with that and see how it goes. If you do find that you're usually not leveraging ACP as like your source of truth, or you're just trying to have a consistent expectation for the amount of jobs that you could expect to see come in, and given that your technician skilling sounds kind of fluid, you might want to consider a non-tech custom capacity option in Scheduling Pro. So maybe just saying, for these given trades or job types, I'm going to allow X number of jobs to be booked per slot. And you can maybe iterate and adjust upon that over time.
Gotcha.
But that said, probably a good idea here, if you are using ACP, to lead with that and see what the results are for you, because I find oftentimes that people that really try to stick the landing with their capacity settings here overdo it a bit and end up turning a lot of customers away that would have otherwise booked because their capacity ends up super restrictive.
Right. So, and that I think is why, I mean, so for you to know just a little bit about me, I've been put in the dispatcher role and I've been working in this industry for 12 years. So I kind of know just by feeling and knowing what my technicians' abilities are and kind of like in my own head figuring out, well, okay, I got to take into time travel time and once they get set up and how long this is going to take. And so, you know, the 2-hour block is not realistic for us. And I try to keep our jobs in close proximity to one another so that there's not a lot of windshield time. So in doing that, I kind of like may kind of overbook, but I overbook with a sort of mindset because I know the technician know their ability and know how, you know, fast they're going to get done with the job that they're on. So it's kind of like, it's a weird situation.
Right.
So what
So
you're saying about adjustable capacity planning, and then the more appealing one for me is non-tech custom planning, because then I can gauge based on the type of job and the call that they're gonna have. So it's like, I don't know, now that makes, it's a little intriguing.
yeah, and one thing I'll say is like this does happen a lot where you have a given system, like you know your techs better than anyone, and so you have a good sense of like how long is this job going to take for that tech versus this other one. And you might be making some on the fly adjustments as far as like technician assignment and that sort of thing when the jobs do come in. So it sounds like it would be maybe unnecessarily restrictive for both you and the availability that you show your customers to say, you know, only Johnny can do this, this no heat call, right? Like that, the end result of that is, let's say Johnny's booked up for that given time slot, and this is a huge replacement opportunity for you, and you turn that customer away because we're reading Johnny, we see he has a job already booked, and so we go 0 capacity. That would be like the worst thing.
Right.
So I would highly recommend start broad and see what's happening. Like if you find yourself getting consistently overbooked, like you're swamped, your techs don't have time, dial it back. But at my perspective on this, and I don't know if you would agree, but you would much prefer to make the connection with those customers, get the job booked, and maybe reach out to them to reschedule versus them never booking in the first place.
Right.
So that's kind of my take, is like, above all else, book the job.
Okay.
Okay, so a little bit of capacity philosophy there. Getting back to brass tacks with Scheduling Pro setup. So you're going to see a couple of things here. I'm just going to go through them quickly and talk just very high level about what you might want to expect and some things to look out for. So we already looked at capacity and the different capacity settings. I think you have what you need to start experimenting with that. In scheduler details, this is where you just pick a scheduler name. You can choose a different workflow. So if you want different scheduler steps or a different order to the scheduling steps, you can do so. Highly recommend you start with standard if this is your first time, because if you're trying to attract new business, asking a customer for their name and phone number right as soon as they open the form could be a little prohibitive. Here you'll also be able to choose colors, whether or not you want to send the appointments as jobs to the dispatch board, which we recommend by default over sending them as bookings. And if you want those drop-off sessions where customers maybe get to the end and drop off, if you want those sent to you as a booking as well, that you can try to convert. One other important thing to call out is that when you're doing the kind of web install piece of this, you got to make sure that your website is whitelisted here. If your website isn't added here, the scheduler will not load on that site. And that's kind of like a security measure.
Okay.
Next, we have zones. So this is pretty straightforward. You just pick the zones you've configured and those are available for booking or not. If you want to adjust the language here, you can do so too. We'll save job types for last because there's a lot of detail there. Question for you, Diane and Scott. Are you guys using Marketing Pro ads right now?
We just started.
Just started, yeah.
Okay, so if you're using Marketing Pro ads, we can integrate with that in Scheduling Pro. Basically meaning the same logic that Marketing Pro ads uses to assign campaigns to different jobs that are booked. We can do the same thing with Scheduling Pro. So if a job comes over and there's certain like UTM or lead source data, like marketing attribution data, we can use the same system effectively. So if you are using Marketing Pro ads, we do recommend enabling this. Some other things to note, there are a few sections where you can customize the language used in the scheduler. So the welcome banner and message is available in the welcome message section. If you want to display a button that populates an emergency phone number, you can add that here. If you want customers to be able to upload photos, videos, PDFs, and add comments in a free text field, you can turn that on or off. If you want to display a dispatch fee to the customer before they book, you can do that. And you also have customizable terms of service. So you have a few different things that you can edit here, which also includes the message that you provide to customers after they finish booking too.
So now in Schedule Pro, how does it work for after hours and weekends?
So with the online scheduling specifically, it depends on if you're making these available for booking or not. There's no special treatment for after hours within Scheduling Pro itself. Now, if you're using live services like chat and voice, they have their own separate configuration outside of this. Now, that said, if you're looking to, let's say, display a different dispatch fee for after hours calls or something of that nature, you can include some messaging here or include a range of dispatch fees. We are also working on a feature that will allow you to set certain rules that display a completely different dispatch fee based on different qualities of the job, like the zone the customer's coming from or the job type selected, that sort of thing.
I know you had something in there about, you know, an emergency number and you can activate that, but let me ask you if it's like Diane's point, if it's a Friday night, a Saturday, Sunday, and they're looking to schedule an appointment for the weekend and we show no availability, is there any place that we can put a blurb in there that says, if this is an emergency, please contact, you know, 845-569-1299? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Determines whether it's, okay, so that would just be under the emergency button. But I guess my question would be, what is it? Is there a message that we can display along with that, or is it just in case of an emergency and it's just a phone number?
So there are a few places where you can add some different content related to an emergency. So first and foremost, you have this emergency button. That will always be at the bottom of the scheduler if you have it turned on. And you can populate that with whatever number you would like. On top of that, you could also include reference to emergency booking in a number of different places. So if you want to add that to your terms of service, you could do so. We also have a contact disclaimer that you can put right under the name and phone number piece. And if you want to include reference to a phone number for emergencies, you can include it there. Additionally, within zones, if someone adds a zip code that's out of your area, you can provide your phone number here. So there's a couple of different places that you can surface this.
All right.
Okay, so those are some of the different just kind of text fields. Now I want to talk job types. So there's two different modes that you can do here, basically. You might be asking yourself, like, how do we know what questions to ask your customers? We'll use the job type mapping settings in ServiceTitan by default, but you don't have to deal with these if you don't want to. So if you come to this page, you might have job type mapping set up in ServiceTitan. And these will be the services that we would show the customer based on your mapping. So if someone selects heating and cooling, we would say, please select your service, and then there would be maintenance, install, and repair options. Let's say I click repair. The follow-up question would be what needs to be repaired, and repair thermostat would show up. So that's just like the default that we build for you. If you want to say, hey, I don't want to deal with that, I have my own things that I need to ask the customer, and I want to map this to my job types, like I want to control all of that, then I'm going to pop over to customize messaging, and I can build out all of the questions, answers, and all of the branching logic that dictates, like, if I say repair, follow up here. So you'll see we
I
have a
wonder
number.
if we want to get like really granular, like on the actual web
Yeah,
scheduler, or, you know, because obviously we're gonna call a customer back and get more detail. So I think if it's just a basic, you know, I have a plumbing issue, it's my water heater leaking, and, you know, I think the less is better.
yeah. So fully aligned with you there, Diane. We've even baked in a 4-question max to
Okay,
these flows.
gotcha.
My perspective on this is, again, book the job.
Right.
Only ask what you need to get the right tech assigned to it, basically.
Got
So again, that's why we kind of give you this very simple setup by default. But if you want to really like take a look at exactly how this is mapped and dial it in,
it.
I can add as many answers as I want here. I can select from a list of popular questions from each trade, or create custom questions as well. And I can also do the question rules. So if the answer is repair, I can go to what needs to be repaired. For install, I can go what needs to be installed.
Right.
We can also add a dead end message. So here's yet another place where you can surface your phone number. If someone is booking something like my basement is flooding, or something of that nature, that's like an absolute emergency, we can instead prompt them to call you instead. Let's say that I get through all of this and, okay, this is my last question. This tells me in kind of my little choose your own adventure what the job type should be for this job. I can say go to scheduling, and job type is equipment install. So here's how you can really control all of the different mapping if you want. This is probably the place where, if you want to go down this route of making it really custom, this is where you're going to spend the most time. On top of that, you have advanced settings. So if you want to do those business unit rules, like I had mentioned, which I would recommend if you're doing capacity planning, you can do so. One other thing that I would say is really important that I would strongly recommend is to create a default tag, call it Scheduling Pro in your ServiceTitan settings, and assign it here. That means that any job booked through our scheduler will come over to you, and it'll have that little tag on the dispatch board. So one other thing that we'll have you do before you actually go live with this is we'll prompt you to check out your scheduler preview, where the scheduler will pop up. You can test it and book a real job into your account to see how it'll look.
Okay.
Once that's done.
So let me ask you a quick question. Do you know like how far we got with this? I kind of think that we were like almost there, and then Matt just pulled back because it was a lot. And I don't remember, God, it was like a couple of weeks ago.
I can certainly check for you. What is your business name?
All right, so it's Royal Class Service.
Okay, give me just a sec here. Let me see if I can find this for you. That was Royal Class Service.
Yeah, I don't know if it's under Mid Hudson Plumbing DBA Royal Class Service. I don't know how
You said that might be Hudson.
Mid MID-HUDSON Plumbing Services Corp. DBA Royal Class Service.
Okay, here we go. Give me just a moment. I will get this pulled up. Okay.
That could be it one. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, looks like you were moving right along in the setup here. Just about everything squared away. One other thing I wanted to note here, you do also have the reserve with Google set up on the next step as well. Had you taken a look or are you familiar with that?
I have not even looked. I'll be honest with you, I was not involved in the initial. He just threw me in on this. I kind of came in on it on the back end, like when she was ready to like, you know, get a date. And I think Matt just froze and just chose to, I think it was a little much.
Sure.
Yeah.
So was there any specific area where you wanted to maybe take a look?
Well, I want to see maybe what the zones are. Okay. So when you customize messaging, choose a code, enable for, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, like I had mentioned, I do think that job types will likely be where you spend the most time.
Okay,
So for context of what you're seeing on the screen here, the reason why you have that little banner is because when we book a job through Scheduling Pro, it needs to be like for a specific one of your job types. But the job type mapping in ServiceTitan lets you map to many. So we're just really asking you to pick one here. Now, if you were to say like, I don't want to deal with this, I actually want to customize everything, you can just click proceed here, and then you'll see those drop downs in the forms with all the logic in it like we just saw. But it's kind of a question of like, do you want the default mode or do you want the custom mode?
so go back because I saw like, we don't clean ducts and vents. So.
That's
Here,
installed.
you know, we would do like maintenance,
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
HVAC maintenance, heating maintenance, kind of the same HVAC maintenance.
Oh, does the check mark mean that we don't do those?
Oh, yeah,
No, the check mark means that those are included in your scheduler.
yeah,
Oh.
we don't clean ducts and vents.
Yeah,
Yeah. So in that case, you would want to go through and remove those.
but we also do everything else, heating maintenance, HVAC maintenance, AC maintenance, repair ACs.
Yeah, so this is definitely not ready though.
Yeah, it looks like we got a bit to go. And it looks like the zones were a bit off as well. They only showed a couple in Orange County, and we do a lot more than that in our area. Because it was showing Cornwall, Fishkill, New Windsor, Newburgh, but we do a lot more in Dutchess and a lot more in Orange. So yeah, it looks like we have some cleaning up to
So-
do with it.
Yeah, so it's like Rockland County, Ulster County, this should be Orange County. If you were doing it specifically by counties,
And Dutchess.
and Dutchess County.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I guess we have to just really look and go into that further.
yeah.
I mean, I know you're not here to help us set this up now, so I get it.
Well, no, I'm more than happy to provide any tips and make sure that you guys are unblocked. But yeah, it just seems like maybe going through and doing kind of a review like what we just did in the example and just
Yeah.
making sure that everything's dialed in is a good idea.
Okay. That's cool.
Cool. Were there any other questions about Scheduling Pro in general that you're wondering or maybe came up as we
No,
were walking through this?
I mean, no, I think you walked us through a lot, especially for somebody that's green, because I didn't know what was.
Yeah, I agree. I think we'll have a lot of questions once we start really getting into it. That's when the questions will, kind of pop its head up.
Yeah, and to that point, if you do have any questions on that setup, feel free to take my email down as well. I'm absolutely able and willing to help you out and make sure that if anything comes up that we can get that taken care of for you.
Okay, can you give me your email?
Yep, it should be in the chat, but otherwise it
Okay.
is J Nyman, that's JNEIMAN at ServiceTitan.com.
Okay, good. Perfect, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, if nothing else, really appreciated getting a chance to meet both of you today and excited to see you up and running with scheduling as well. Like I mentioned, there's, I think like a little survey that'll pop up after if this was helpful for you guys to get things kicked off. Definitely let the team know it worked well for you, but you have my email now. If there are anything, any questions that come up or anything that you need some further guidance or consultation on, I'm happy to help.